Why the hell do writers put sex scenes in their sci-fi books? It brings the story to a screeching halt. All the killing and cool explosions stop. You probably guessed, I really don't like reading sex scenes in my science fiction. Why not? Well, that's what porn is for. Not that I would ever indulge in such a crass thing, but I have friends who do. As an author, I know there are some legitimate reasons why a writer includes sex in their books, like sci-fi romance. Power dynamics, particularly sex between a human and an android or a hologram. See if you can guess which of these three books has at least one graphic sex scene. Polaris Rising, Edge of Nowhere, Thorn. Actually, all three of them feature some pretty heavy sex. Thorn, Starlight Highlander's Mail Order Brides Book 1, definitely sci-fi romance. Think of Thorn as Highlander in space meets a mail-order bride catalog. The story features a brooding alien hunk who comes to Earth to scout for compatible mates but ends up falling for a fiery businesswoman who's trying to escape her abusive ex. It's got all the essentials: kilts, high-stakes dating agency, and the burning question of whether or not our heroine is Thorn's soulmate or just some science experiment. The characters are engaging, believable, though the protagonist's abusive ex does stray into one-dimensional douchebag territory. The premise: I can see these beautiful Scottish women falling for dudes with the stereotypical six-pack abs, plus the kilts. But even though us Earth guys are wimps compared to these alien studs, I strongly suspect that the forearms is a deal breaker for a lot of women. The pros: 4 out of 5. Solid writing. Polaris Rising. Despite its dated book cover, this is the kind of sci-fi romance I can get into. Lots of hand-to-hand combat, lots of people dying, protagonist gets hypothermia. Beautiful. My one complaint: the sex scene. Polaris Rising. Like so many other sci-fi romances, the man is strong, but big, but gentle, and totally objectify, which doesn't bother me. It's more like everything that he does brings the protagonist to orgasm. He blows on her wrist. Her core explodes. I'm exaggerating, but not really. Sci-fi romance sex scenes read more like fantasy to me. But hey, if it works for you. Polaris Rising is about Ada, the fifth child of a massive high house, and her only job is to be a political pawn in a marriage she wants no part of. She's been successfully dodging her father for 2 years until she gets caught and tossed into a cell with Marcus Locke, a genetically enhanced soldier who supposedly murdered his whole command. The characters. I totally lost myself in them and was rooting for these make-believe people. The premise: who doesn't want to read about a runaway space princess? The pros: author Jesse Milholick knows how to spin an engaging space opera. Polaris Rising is basically a sci-fi romance wrapped in space opera. Edge of Nowhere introduces us to Kit Jackson. Kit, a cynical nowhere runner, spends his days smuggling goods through a void-like dimension that would basically liquefy anyone else. Kit lives by one motto: don't ask questions, don't make friends, and always get paid. But his professional detachment is tested when his latest parcel, who incidentally happens to be a sedated slab of man muscle. Well, things become complicated for Kit when he and Emil get stranded on a planet. The story switches back and forth between Kit and Emil's perspectives, which lets you see exactly how a jaded smuggler and his cargo managed to stop bickering long enough to stay alive. The characters, both minor and main characters, are richly drawn and make you want to spend more time with them. The premise? Let's just say more fantasy than science fiction. The prose is engaging, good dialogue, good writing. My one criticism: Kit puts his fingers in Emil's mouth. Yes, he was high on wild berries, but Emil had to know that Kit did not wash his hands. That's a pass for me. That being said, I read all 3 of these books and highly recommend each of them, depending upon what you're into. I also read the second book in the Polaris Rising series. Now you might be asking, so you never wrote a sex scene, Savage? Of course I have. In my romance books, but in my science fiction books, the sex scenes happen off-screen. I found this to be true with most male sci-fi authors who write straight male protagonists. They'll give 2 or 3 lines about how the protagonist is worried that it's been so long since he had sex that he's afraid that he's forgotten how to do it. Spoiler, he's always amazing. Strangely enough, we never get to hear from his partner's point of view. Quick thought on objectification. In some genres, like men's adventure fiction, it's one of the tropes. I'm not going to show the covers, but here are some example titles. Catgirls from Outer Space, Starship Tigress. And a lot of these books are written by women. My point is, objectification isn't a flaw in these books, it's the product, and that's perfectly fine. Characters notice bodies. They objectify each other. That's human nature. And pretending it doesn't happen makes stories feel sanitized. I'm never going to write, "The tilt of her smile captured his attention." Wrong! It was her boobs. What matters is who gets objectified by whom and whether it serves the story. Here's my idea of the perfect sci-fi sex scene. So basically, no sex on screen. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of writers who will disagree with me, and that's okay. You might disagree too. But me, I'm reading a science fiction story for a compelling story. The cool tech, character drama, and lasers blasting away. So that's my opinion. I'd really like to know your thoughts. How do you feel about sex scenes in your science fiction books? A. Pure sci-fi only, no distractions. B. Both romance and sci-fi. C. Off-screen is the only way to go. Or D. I'm only here for the 4-armed Highlanders. Put your answer in the comments. Better yet, put your answer in a review for a book you recently read, or email the author. Most of us enjoy hearing from readers, and we really do pay attention to what you want. And for those of you who chose D, the Highlanders,